Hello, my name is Danny, and I just want to thank you so much for joining me today in this two-part vlog based on the main themes of the biblical theology and their significance. This vlog is going to contain two parts. So the first part, I'm going to be explaining to you where these themes can be found in the Old Testament, what they mean, and how they are important in their own right. Then the second video will go into a little deeper meaning, so we'll dig deeper in how each theme is important in the whole meta-narrative. So it's going to be really exciting, and I really hope you stick around for both parts. It's going to encourage you to really just do your own studying, just like it did me. So the first part, in part one, let's go ahead and just dig right in. First part, what are the themes? So there's plenty of themes in the Old Testament, but the main themes are going to be the six, which I will be talking to you about. The first one is covenants. Second is creation, God's sovereignty, the greatness of Yahweh, kingship, and idolatry. All of these things are noticed throughout the Old Testament, and again, I'll dig deeper, but let's kind of dig into where we can find them. So we notice the covenants in the Adamic, the Noahic, the Abrahamic, Mosaic, and Davidic. I got these, or the reference that I used to kind of pick the main ones is going to be our session 3 lecture, which is the major themes of the biblical theology. The professor who did that helped me a lot to kind of go and do my own research and help me to find where I can find these. But again, the covenants, you think about it, the main one is, of course, going to be how the Abrahamic, for example, where God promises Abraham land, blessings, people. That right there also falls into the theme of God's sovereignty and kingship. So that was that. The Noahic, which we all know, Noah's Ark, and how God was just so distraught about how the earth, just from his creation, how he created it, could just fall into sin and destruction, that he decided to flood the earth. But he promised Noah, because Noah was so close to him and in that relationship with him, he promised him that if he built an ark, he would save him and his family. And he told Noah, get male and female animals. You know, we all know that story. And again, part 2 is going to go deeper into this. I don't want to go too much into detail about these because I need to cover a lot of things. So that's covenants. Again, creation. Creation also falls into covenants, because if you think about it, the initial creation was, of course, how God created Adam and Eve. He created humans. From there, they kind of were fruitful, multiplied, and that just fell into its own creation. But if you think about it, when God created Eve for Adam, that was the creation for relationship, for human relationship. How God never intended us to be alone. He always wanted to have somebody, and not just significant other, but like friendships and stuff like that. So that in itself is like, there's another creation. The covenants that he does with his people are creations as well. God's sovereignty is noticed when he creates something out of absolutely nothing. And again, session 3 lecture calls it ex nihilo, which is a Greek word, but where God literally, there was like nothing, and all he said was, let there be light, and boom, like there you go, a whole galaxy, earth, the Garden of Eden. Like, it's just mind-blowing to know that the God of the universe created this everything out of absolutely nothing. That right there shows God's sovereignty. The greatness of Yahweh, same thing. He created us. He loves us. He's so merciful. He's so forgiving. He's just truly amazing. And we know that he's like great and he's good all the time. And that in itself just is seen throughout the Old Testament. Kingship, of course, we see in Genesis, and I'll get into this in just a little bit, but Genesis, he prophesies, that there are going to be kings. He kind of sets the standard for those kings. But if you notice, the standard for the kings that he chooses are those who are closest to him. Because if you also further notice that when King Saul was disobedient, he took that kingship away and he gave it to David. So that standard of kingship, and I know there's also King Pharaoh who was meant to just kind of get in his own destruction, but again, it's because he was the opposite of being obedient and close to God. So, I mean, that's the way I see it. Idolatry, again, is another major theme that you see throughout the Old Testament. God is the creation of the universe. He's the creator of the people. He's the one who took the people of Israel under his wing and said, "You are my people." He's the one who, when they were in slavery, he took them from slavery and wanted to take them into the promised land. He made those commandments in Exodus as an expectation, saying, if you stray from idolatry and don't fall into the false practices of worshiping false gods, if you love me with all your heart, mind, and soul, basically telling them a guideline that he would love them, and even then, he still loves them unfaithfully when they mess up. But my whole point to this spiel is that out of all the creation, out of all God's things that he did, he's the only one who is worthy of worship. And that is what idolatry is all he's asking from his people is to be the only one to be worshipped, and not to fall into these false practices like the Canaanites who worshipped Baal and all those other false gods. Where do you find these? Most of this you find in, of course, the Old Testament, but in the book of Genesis, majorly in Exodus and Judges. Deuteronomy is a really good one to read. You'll find Deuteronomy like the Mosaic. Exodus and Deuteronomy just kind of put enhancement on how God's covenant of drip into the Old Testament, because that's where he hints of he's going to send Jesus. Same thing with David. After the first three covenants, how they were, messed up by human of sin and destruction, God promises David that he will raise up one of his descendants. And right there in 2 Samuel 7, God basically tells David, one of your descendants is going to be King of Kings, Lord of Lords. I'm going to secure his throne. And that right there, he's explaining about Jesus, the final king. Creation is also found in the book of Genesis and all throughout the Old Testament, where he creates those covenants. Sovereignty, same thing. I kind of explained it a little bit about ex nihilo, again, session 3 lecture. Isaiah 46, 8 through 11 just kind of enhances more on that. The greatness of Yahweh, which is Nehemiah 1, 5 through 6, and 1 Samuel 12, 22. The Lord is consistent in his covenants, and although the people may not be, he is. And that's what the greatness of Yahweh is. Again, I promise you in part 2, I'll go much deeper into this. I'm just kind of trying to give you a little outline of where to look, so that way maybe I'll encourage you to go and look. Kingship is found in Genesis 17:6, which is where he prophesies the kings. And of course, as I mentioned a little bit ago, 2 Samuel 7, which is where he promises. How all of these are important is that God remains obedient. God, never mind, scratch that, kind of edited it. Okay. All of these provide an important outline of how much God loves us and who God is. God's presence, as long as you remain in obedience with him, he's going to take care of you. If you notice that all the kings and all the people who are closest to him, the prophecies, all those people are close to God. Creation is important in its own right. It's the significance of the beginning of creation, the beginning of relationship, the beginning of those covenants. All of that has its own significance. Thank you again for joining me for part 1. Please join me for part 2, where I go and I dig deeper. And I promise you will not, it's going to encourage you to go and maybe hold a Bible study or just Bible study by yourself and look up, but it will get you closer to God. Thank you again.